Hey, yo, how did the Brooklyn Nets fumble 3 future Hall of Famers and then 2 more before that? It's a mess. I got all the tea you'll want to see. Let me know in the comment section if you have seen a franchise more messier than this one. It was the offseason 2019, and the free agency market in the NBA is always a buzz whenever you have superstars in Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant looking for a new team to go to. Both teams wanted to get out of the shadows from their previous teams. Kyrie wanted to leave Boston and the drama that insinuated with playing with Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Marcus Smart. All the while, Kevin Durant wanted to get out of Golden State after he had the falling out with Draymond Green, and with him saying that had a huge part in him leaving the Golden State Warriors.
Did that play a role in you leaving Golden State?
A little bit, yeah, for sure.
Originally, Kevin Durant wanted to go save basketball for the New York Knicks and win them their first NBA championship since 1973. However, at the All-Star game in 2019, you could see Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant talking to each other, and Kevin Durant was laughing at something that Kyrie Irving was saying, in which Kyrie Irving was holding up 2 fingers saying that they have 2 max contracts, the Brooklyn Nets does, so that they should go and save basketball in Brooklyn, especially with Kyrie Irving being a diehard Nets fan. He was a Dr. J fan, so why not go play for his quote-unquote childhood team? It was made official in June of 2019. Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant would be the newest members of the Brooklyn Nets, and just with those 2 alone, they were screaming title town, that they would be the next dynasty in the NBA, or they would be a part of the next finals matchups for years to come. Now, let's not forget, a few years prior, 7 years prior at that time, the Brooklyn Nets had Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, 2 NBA champions, and even then, that was screaming for at least 1 championship to be won and many other final appearances in their future. However, they had nothing to show for it. Now, we had to wait a little bit to see Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving be on the court a little while, because Kevin Durant was coming off his Achilles injury and Kyrie Irving was battling some injuries himself the first year that those 2 were in Brooklyn, a shoulder injury to be exact. But when they did take the court, it was sheer fireworks. Throughout the 2020-2021 basketball season, that's when Kevin Durant returned, and that's when Kyrie Irving returned, and the Nets were making waves with their play left and right, winning game after game after game, and they had a good record through the All-Star break. But as the trade deadline hit in early 2021, the Nets were looking to add 1 more piece to their already stacked championship team. And who would that piece might be? How about none other than the Beard himself, the one and only James Harden. As there was rumors before, he wanted to be out of Houston right then and there. He got his wish, went to the Nets, reunited with Kevin Durant, and with the Nets addition of James Harden, there was no debate. The Brooklyn Nets were going to win that season's NBA championship, and if they didn't win that championship, then something was truly wrong with basketball. They ended that season with the number 2 seed in the East and home court advantage in their first round matchup against the Boston Celtics. They absolutely mollywopped the Boston Celtics, winning in 5 games, which set up a date with the Milwaukee Bucks in a series that still many people had the Brooklyn Nets winning, especially if all 3 superstars, Hall of Famers, would be playing. They absolutely destroyed the Bucks in game 1 and absolutely slaughtered the Bucks in game 2, winning by 40. Game 3, they lost, but hey, that's the name of the game. You take some L's here and there. Game 4, though, is when it all came to a screeching halt where Kyrie Irving sprained his ankle. I still think it was a dirty move by Giannis, but that's not the here nor there. Kyrie Irving was done for that series, and James Harden was already battling a hamstring injury of some sort, so he was not 100%, which meant that Kevin Durant was going to have to use his skinny shoulders to try and lift the number 2 seed Brooklyn Nets past the number 3 seed Milwaukee Bucks to go on to the next round in the Eastern Conference Finals, where they would await the winner of Philadelphia and Atlanta. Game 7, the Nets were oh so close from going to the Eastern Conference Finals. Kevin Durant should have gotten a pedicure or something, because he was just a toenail short of the 3-point line, to where if that shot was a 3-pointer, the Nets would have gone on and defeated the Atlanta Hawks and went on to be your 2021 NBA champions. But no, Durant's foot was on the line, which meant overtime in Game 7, the 2 best words in sports, and a game unlike anything we have ever seen. An overtime game in Game 7, it was an all-time classic for Sure, Kevin Durant was so tired because he'd done so much in that game. He said in a later report that he was basically in a daze because he was so exhausted. He gave it everything he had, and it was still not enough as the Milwaukee Bucks defeated the Brooklyn Nets in 7 by 4, 115 to 111, and they went on to win the NBA championship that year. But it's okay. 2021-2022 season, it had the Nets championship hopes written all over it. The Nets were actually favored to win the title that next year because all their key pieces were coming back. Kyrie Irving was going to come back stronger. James Harden was going to be 100%. Now we were going to see the Nets dynasty really take off. Not so fast, however, as the vaccine mandate came into fruition throughout the entire country, the entire world, and Kyrie Irving simply refused to take the vaccine. I'm not going to get into that as much as any other people would, but that's what happened. He wouldn't take the vaccine, which led the Nets to ultimately benching Kyrie, sending Kyrie home and saying, we'll talk to you at a later date and see if you could come back and be ready to play or take some form of the vaccine and whatnot. And that made James Harden extremely pissed off because he felt that Kyrie Irving was not in it for the long run. He wasn't in it to win a championship. He was in it for himself. And that led to James Harden's first exit. He was the first superstar out of those big three to request a trade from the Nets because, again, of the dysfunction and the drama that Kyrie Irving brought to the team. It was announced in February, a few days after Valentine's Day, that the Philadelphia 76ers would trade Ben Simmons to the Brooklyn Nets in exchange for James Harden, in which James Harden has been there ever since. But the Nets still had a very good record in the 2021-2022 season. In fact, they were the number 1 seed in the East. That is until Kevin Durant went down with the sprained MCL, very similar to this year. He went down with a knee injury, and the Nets lost about 9 in a row, and that is when they came calling back for Kyrie. They got down on both knees and begged for Kyrie Irving to come back and help save the season because they went from the number 1 seed to the 6th seed and having to be ultimately in the play-in game. Kyrie Irving came back and helped them win a few games, but it didn't escape the Nets from being in the play-in. So the Nets defeated the Cleveland Cavaliers to be the number 7 seed in the Eastern Conference. And who did they have to play? The team that they played in the first round the year prior, the Boston Celtics. Only the Boston Celtics were the number 2 team in the East, whereas the Brooklyn Nets were the number 7 seed. Literally a flip-flop. And that series was just a total mismatch because the Nets couldn't have any answer for the law firm of Tatum and Brown. However, it was a very competitive sweep by the Boston Celtics as the Nets were in every single game. I believe they lost all their games by a margin of 10 points or less. Game 1 was utterly heartbreaking as Jason Tatum spun his way to a layup which truly set the tone for the rest of the series. And before we knew it, the Nets were done and were the only team to be swept that entire 2022 postseason. Still though, Nets faithful was hopeful that they would still get a championship out of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. They've been on that team for 3 years. It'll be the 4th year that they were there, and they only had 1 playoff series win to show for it, but they were all coming back, and they were hoping that this could be the true year. A season with a healthy Kyrie and a healthy Kevin Durant, what could go wrong? They could truly make some noise. However, Kevin Durant dropped the entire bombshell of the entire summer of 2022 when he requested a trade from the Brooklyn Nets. Now, I gotta give kudos to the Nets front office because they held Kevin Durant's feet to the fire because Kevin Durant signed a contract in the offseason for 4 years, X amount of money. He got all the money he wanted, but he already signed a contract. The Nets wanted him to honor that contract. So Kevin Durant agreed to stay, but many people thought he would get traded during the deadline. More on that later. So the 2022 season begins and the Nets are off to a not so good start. Ben Simmons has yet to play a single dribble for them, but the Nets are doing all right. They were the number 12th seed in the East. That is until both of them, both Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, got on an absolute tear. And Ben Simmons came back, started playing well for them, and they went on a 12-game win streak. Well, just like last year, the same thing happened this year. Kevin Durant went down with another MCL sprain and was out for X amount of months. Nobody knew, but if the Nets were to make the playoffs, he would be back for that. They were the number 4th seed, and everything seemed to be going good. All the cogs in the clock were meshing perfectly. That is until Kyrie Irving dropped all the wrong reasons for Brooklyn to be in the news, kind of like his entire tenure at Brooklyn. He demanded a trade. Just before the trade deadline, Kyrie Irving wanted out of Brooklyn, and that rocked the entire NBA. It broke every Brooklyn Nets fan's heart because everything seemed to be going perfect. Why would Kyrie Irving want a trade? Kevin Durant was the one that requested a trade in the offseason, so what's Kyrie Irving doing? However, the Nets wanted to get rid of Kyrie, I'm sure, since the vaccine mandate controversy, so they gave him his wish and sent him to the Dallas Mavericks. It's okay though. That was the second star to leave. Kevin Durant is still there. We got one more star left. Maybe the Nets could build around Kevin Durant throughout the season, especially with the trade deadline coming up. Well, if only the trade deadline was mere hours after Kyrie Irving got traded, because that's when Kevin Durant wanted yet another trade request to be fulfilled this time, which it was, and now he is a member of the Phoenix Suns. Everybody within that organization, from Harden, Irving, Durant, they all felt like there was nothing but total dysfunction within the organization, and that the front office wasn't taking the necessary steps for the team to win. However, I completely have to disagree with that statement because you have the big three of all big threes. You can make the argument that was the most dynamic big three in the NBA, and there was nothing to show for it but one playoff series win that entire tenure. And in Kevin Durant's introductory press conference for the Phoenix Suns, he was asked about his time with the Brooklyn Nets, and he was on the verge of tears.
Love those guys. I get emotional to talk about them because that was a special 4 years of my career.
So with him saying what he said, then why did he leave?
It's another story about why we didn't get on the floor together, but we just didn't get enough time on the floor.
And if there's other reasons as to why they all didn't take the court at a certain amount of times, why they only played 16 games together and went 13-3, then there will definitely have to be some answers to that explanation that KD just made. Ultimately, I do think there will be a 30 for 30 documentary on how these three influential players did not win one single championship in their time on the Brooklyn Nets, or at least an untold documentary series on Netflix. Again, you had a chance to win a championship when you had KG, Paul Pierce, and Jason Terry, all players who have won a championship before. And then, a few years later, you had an even better chance to win a championship when you had KD, Kyrie, and Harden, and you didn't win squat. And this is a story about how the Brooklyn Nets became the laughingstock of the NBA.